I've been talking to a lot of people over the past 4 years. Um, Sometimes online exchanges, but also in person, like sitting and talking with people who are longtime progressives and liberals who are in that really somewhat traumatic process of waking up. And I don't mean waking up. People on the right are going to mishear this. I don't mean necessarily waking up and saying, I'm not a liberal progressive anymore. That's not what I mean. I mean waking up to what we call the cathedral, to the propaganda machine, waking up
They're
to
red pilling a little bit. That doesn't mean
yes,
you're on the right, but they're red pilling.
right. They're starting to see how legacy media, big social, and major corporations, academia, deep state, or if you prefer, just the political elite of both major parties, how they all function to feed us this propaganda, and how the propaganda is getting crazier. We're in a period of acceleration right now. And I know what that transformation is like because I went through it 4 years ago. I woke up during the acceleration that happened around 2016, 2017. But there are a lot of people waking up now during this acceleration. And talking with them reminds me of what it felt like then. It is very scary, and it is very you can feel very alone because it's like leaving a cult in some ways. Leaving a cult of belief is no different. And so it's not just like you're like, changing your policy position on immigration or the minimum wage or something. It's not like some simple belief or opinion that you have, one little thing that's changing. It's your entire way of looking at the world, like your whole system of belief. If you've lived most of your life with faith in the government, or faith in your political party, or faith in the media, oh my gosh, with faith in the media, if you've
Does anyone
yeah,
live with faith in the media? Maybe some people.
yes,
Yeah.
they do. They have so much. They put so much faith in places like the New York Times or Washington Post or CNN, and if you've lived with that kind of faith, and even deeper, if you've lived with the faith that your side, like however you define that, but your side is good, and that social justice, specifically if you were in the social justice cult like I was, and you've lived with the belief that social justice is good, it is like raising your whole house of belief to the ground and starting over in the rubble and trying to figure out what foundation you're going to build with, and then start going from there. And while you're in the middle of that, and it takes a long time, it takes some of the people I've talked to recently, more than one, multiple people, they were at BLM protests as recently as this past summer. And now they're finding themselves in this place and wondering what's happening to them. They are called crazy sometimes by loved ones, by friends and family who are still in the matrix, who are still on the propaganda feeding tube. Like they are called crazy. At the beginning, a lot of people will question if they are crazy. They'll wonder, are they right? Is it me? Because you're just so uncertain. Everything's been pulled out from under you. And it's correct. You should be questioning. Of course, you're going to question yourself. You should be. That's what sets you apart from those people who don't leave the cult, because they don't question. They don't allow themselves to question. It's healthy to question yourself. So I would say, I was saying to someone talking about this when I shared this piece, they were talking about how they question themselves. I said, that's good. That's healthy. We should all be doing that. But it's a really scary place for people. And I think there were two reasons I wrote the piece. One was because in the past 4 years since I've been doing these interviews, as you know, Carter, I've occasionally heard from people who were never in the cult. Maybe they're on the right, maybe they're in the center, or what have you, but they're never in the cult. And they're sometimes expressing anger at people who are just waking up. And this is not a lot of people. It's definitely the minority. It's a few people. Yeah. It's not anywhere.
I would categorize it probably more as frustration and bitterness than outright anger, right? But
I've seen both.
Okay.
Yeah, frustration, bitterness, but it's a small minority of people. But because I've seen it enough now, I wanted to say something to those people, which is that if you haven't left a cult of belief, if you haven't been through that process of raising everything to the ground and dealing with the fear of everything you're going to lose, and you will lose things. If you haven't dealt with that fear of loss, of isolation, of shame, you're going to be shamed by people you thought were your friends who've known you your whole life. If you haven't been through that, you don't know what you're talking about. And you're being counterproductive to the things that you claim to believe in, because you're rejecting grieving people instead of offering them a welcoming place. You're rejecting them, but what, out of arrogance or a need to feel special, or like you've always been right, or like you saw,
right.
You're being counterproductive. And as I've said to you before on the show, like, if I throw a party, I don't care what time you get here. Like, I don't care how late you are. And
but I'm going to be
came.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you on what you just said. However, I'm going to be empathetic to the other side just for a minute. And the reason I'm going to be empathetic is because I don't want those people to get. I don't want to just say screw you. We're taking over the party now. Like, I get that you've been at the party for a while. You're just not being very productive. Have some empathy for the people that are just coming. I have gone. By the way, I have undergone a monumental life change. I don't talk about it much, and it was over 20 years ago. But I completely abandoned my religion. I was more devout than almost any Christian that I meet on a day-to-day basis. I got up every morning and prayed and read the Bible every morning at 5 a.m. I was extremely devout. And I became an atheist after months of consternation, literally like lying on the floor in the guest bedroom crying to myself about, giving up beliefs because I thought I had to, because I thought that I had, and I still believe I'm right. But I was using my mind and trying to reach conclusions that I didn't like. I hated the conclusions. I hated what it would do to me. I lost my family. I was disowned from my parents at the time. I lost friends. I lost everything making that decision. I get it. Now, that was a long time ago. But it is very painful. If you've never done that, it is not an easy thing to do. It's not easy. By the way, I sometimes laugh. There was I remember Bradley, your pastor, who I really like, said, well, do you like, a lot of people don't want to believe. I actually would love to be Christian. It would make my life so much easier. I would be welcomed with open arms from a whole bunch of people in the Christian community. Like, there's a whole bunch of people. Like, my life would be infinitely easier, but I can't because of my intellectual integrity, right? And so that's okay. And but when people come over, when you've been railing against as I have been railing against the authoritarian state for 20 some odd years, right? And people come over to the party and they're like, oh, this one thing is bad. I will readily admit I'm not perfect. There is a part of me that's like grumbly. That's like, really, where the fuck have you been? I've been struggling for 20 years against this. Like, where the hell have you been while I've been fighting this battle? You were on the wrong side. And there is like a frustration and resentment there. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it should be indulged. And it's the right thing to do is what you're saying, which is to say, you know what? Here's how I handle it usually. Like, okay, I feel that, but you know what? Better late than never, and I'm really glad that they're here now, and I can be a guide to them to show them what they've been missing at the party for the past 20 years. So, and people who've been there longer can guide me, and like, that's okay. And at the end of the day, you got to get over that. But I do understand that resentment, especially from people who have, there are plenty of people who feel like they've been screaming at the top of their lungs. And I wasn't one of these because I was in another career. I've only been doing this for a couple of years, right? But there have been people who have been actively warning and screaming about this for their entire lives, for decades. And I understand the like frustration when it's like, Jesus, guys, like, it takes this much for you to come over. I get it. And I don't think that frustration is unwarranted. I do think it's counterproductive, and you shouldn't act on it.
It's counterproductive. And
Yeah,
for some people, I'm not talking about you.
I know. I'm trying
I
to
know,
empathize with the people that are doing that a
right,
little
but
bit.
there are also some people who are not like you, where it comes from just as much a place of closed-mindedness and arrogance and entitlement and resentment as social justice comes from. I've seen
Sure,
that. And
sure.
it's like, and to those people, I'd say, I didn't come to your party anyway. You're not in my party.
Right,
Like,
right.
I don't choose to have,
I'm not in your party.
I don't choose to have resentful, negative buttholes at my party.
Right.
So,
And if
anyway,
you are one of those people, though, who have been around, you can help because often people wake up in little increments. They wake up a little bit and they're like, oh,
yes,
I recognize this little thing.
yes,
This is your opportunity to go welcome them in and say, yeah, you're totally right about that little thing. By the way, have you noticed this little thing and this little thing and this little thing? You can slowly start to draw them out. And swallowing the red pill is a process. It doesn't just happen instantaneously.
right. So that's part of what this is about. Is that, just to finish up that little part there, was that it was written for people that I've seen, and again, it's a small minority of people. It's not nearly it's not even half. It's a fraction of people. But for that
Right.
response, I'd say you're never going to be the rock in someone's life. If they start to wake up, they're never going to come to you because you're not going to be a place of shelter. You're going to push them away. So
Right. They're going to not want to wake up.
they're not going to,
What kind of reception
exactly.
is that?
You're
Yeah.
gonna be counterproductive, and I would encourage you to grow up yourself and to develop some compassion.